Hey friends, welcome to Living the KG Life, a pixie dust-filled podcast. Today is going to be our first episode, probably of many, where we are going to talk about Run Disney. So stick around, it's going to be great. Okay, before we jump into my Run Disney journey or why I run Disney, let's do some Run Disney 101 as we're actually about to approach the kickoff to Run Disney season. And you might be thinking to yourself, KG, what is Run Disney and what is a Run Disney season? So let's go over just some basics of what Run Disney is, how it works. Then we'll talk a little bit about my journey with Run Disney. And then at the end of the episode, I will give some tips on if you are either interested or have some questions or excited about Run Disney, where you can get started. So Run Disney is listed as the most enchanting running events on earth. And their tagline is "Every mile is magic." So they, as you can probably assume, they put together run or race events at Disney. Now, currently, Walt Disney World is the only one still currently hosting the events. They have held them at Disneyland in the past, also in Disneyland Paris. Definitely some things that I am crossing my fingers hoping that they come back, so I'd love to check those out. So in this episode, we're going to focus mostly on Run Disney at Walt Disney World. And then in some future episodes, we can talk about some additional Run Disney races. So at Walt Disney World, there are 4 Run Disney race weekends. We have November, January, February, and April. Each weekend has its own distinct theme. They also have their own distinct distances or races each weekend. In November, we have Disney's Wine and Dine Half Marathon Weekend, where they host a 5K, 10K, and half marathon distances each on their own day throughout the weekend. In January, we have the Walt Disney World Marathon Weekend, where they host a 5K, a 10K, a half marathon, and a full marathon over the course of the weekend. In February, we have the Disney Princess Half Marathon Weekend, which is my favorite. They host a 5K, a 10K, and a half marathon across the weekend. So in April, it's interesting because up until 2021, it was the Rival Run Weekend, which was Star Wars themed. And 2021 was actually the last year for the Star Wars Rival Run Weekend. They've decided they're going to re-theme that whole race weekend. And so as of 2022, it's going to be called the Run Disney Springtime Surprise Weekend. Now, we don't know what the theme's going to be. We don't know even what the distances are. All they have said, kind of like the little blurb on the Run Disney website, says it's a completely different experience every year. You never know what to expect, except that it's going to be fun and distinctively Disney. So we know that the theme is going to change. In what capacity, we don't know. And then we also know that the distances will change. We will definitely keep you up to date on what's going on with that. I am really excited to see what the theme will be. One of the things that is actually really cool with a lot of these race weekends, because they've been happening for a long time, is if you participate in the race weekend from the very first or the inaugural weekend, you'll end up over time getting a certain status called perfect or legacy. So they get, the special status for participating in the weekend every year. They get, special, I believe they get special ribbons on their medals when they cross the finish line and things like that. So that will actually be my first opportunity to potentially get a perfect status. So I'm hoping it's a theme that I'll really love so that I can participate in that aspect. The other thing that they have each weekend is challenges. So for these race weekends, you can either participate in a single race, in multiple races, or you can do what's called a challenge. And each themed weekend's challenge is a little bit different. So for Wine and Dine in November, their challenge is a 2-course challenge. So you complete the 10K on one day and you complete the half marathon the following day. January for Marathon Weekend, they actually have 2 different challenges. They have the Goofy Challenge, which is completing 39.3 miles in one weekend. So you're completing the half marathon one day and the full marathon the next day. They also, in that same weekend, have the Dopey Challenge, which is 48.6 miles. That is so many goddamn miles in one weekend. That means you're completing all 4 races of the weekend. The 5K, the 10K, the half marathon, and the full marathon. That's a lot of miles on your feet, but the runners that complete Dopey are absolutely incredible. So if you are a Dopey challenger, a Dopey runner, a Dopey finisher, congratulations. I don't know if I'll ever get to that. I've learned in this running world and experience to never say never, but the goofy and Dopey runners are always an incredibly impressive group of folks. And then in February, I guess we'll just have to kind of wait and see what the challenge will be, if they have a challenge for that weekend, or kind of how that's all going to play out. We'll see what that looks like. For a lot of these races, you'll hear a lot of people say that runDisney is a fantastic place to either do your first race of any kind, all the way up to your first marathon or your first long distance, because the people that participate in these races, these runners, these athletes, the range is, I think, the biggest range that I've ever seen at an event, where you have people that are walking, people that are run walking, doing like an interval style race, which is what I personally do, or people that are running and they're doing a pretty great pace, or there's people that are just like fast AF. It's really a huge range. And what's so cool about that is that everybody's motivating you, everybody's empowering you. It's a really encouraging community to run with. It doesn't make you feel like, oh, I don't belong here, I'm too slow, or anything like that. It's really a fun race. And everyone that's either on the course or working the course or supporting the course, cheering you on the course, everybody makes it about the magic, makes it about the fun. And to me, that's what I love the most about it. The route is incredible. You have character stops along the route. There are DJs and entertainment across the route. There are cheerleaders. There are school bands. There's so much to see and do and kind of experience and take your mind off the fact that you're running all of these miles in Florida and potentially any kind of wild weather down there. And they make it really fun. The other thing is the other runners you'll see, some people don't dress up at all. Some people wear kind of like a Disney bound type outfit where their outfit honors a certain character or a theme or a movie or a ride or a park. You'll see any of those. And then you'll see some people that are in like full out costume. I have seen people in full ball gowns. I have seen people in like a giant Mickey hand, which was wild. There are really just so many really creative costumes because, again, people are doing these for fun. They want to have the experience of running Disney. They want to be able to experience running through the parks, because for each race, you'll run through at least one of the parks. And, the longer distances will add additional parks or the boardwalk, things like that. So you get to really have this totally different scenic, magical route. So if you don't live in the Orlando or Disney area like me, so I'm up in a city right outside of Boston, our races are nothing like that up here. We are running just like in neighborhoods or on, long stretches of street or road. So the runDisney races, that course is so fun and so different, and you truly can't get that anywhere else. And as I mentioned, a lot of the runners, it really ranges how fast people run or the approach that they take to their runs, or even just to completing the race, because they may be walking. The pacing for these races is you have to be able to keep a 16.16-minute mile. So they tell you to train a little bit faster than that so you can make sure that you're prepared for if it's raining, if it's really hot, if it's really humid. One of the races that I've done down there was actually kind of cold in the morning. So if you can train a little bit faster than that, you'll kind of give yourself a little bit of a buffer to not hit that 16-minute point and potentially be swept off the course. They also have what they call the balloon ladies. And you'll hear a lot of people that do runDisney talk about the balloon ladies, and they sound really scary and they sound really intimidating, but they are actually incredibly nice people. And basically, they call them the balloon ladies because they are actually the very last people to start the race. So they are in the very last corral. They're the last people to take off, and they keep that 16-minute pace. So what you want to do is the goal really for that whole race, regardless of if you're going for time, if you're going for a PR, or if you're really just crossing or hoping to cross the finish, is to just stay ahead of those balloon ladies so that you don't get swept off the course. The other part that's exciting is to be able to see so many folks really successfully complete a race doing the run walk method. Jeff Galloway is someone who you'll also hear a lot about in the runDisney world, where he has created training plans for runDisney about how to train leading up to any distance of races, completing a run walk method. And what I love that he talks a lot about is you'll be able to actually keep a really great pace if you're sticking to your intervals that you've set or that you've chosen or committed to in your training. And the goal is to finish injury-free, to finish feeling really good and feeling really, really proud of crossing that finish line. So that's something else to really think about, how you want to approach the distance or distances that you want to complete in a runDisney weekend. Some additional info just of like how the race weekends work. We'll have a lot of episodes in the future. We'll also be bringing on, and we already have some planned, some really great guests that are big runDisney friends that will come on and talk about their experiences with runDisney, training for different challenges, what they do, kind of like their do's and don'ts, how they prep. So lots more to come on that. But the race itself, a few additional kind of like notes or things to know, they are early AF. And I mean AF. So usually the races start at 5 or 5:30 a.m. depending on the distance. So like the marathon, for example, is a longer race. So that one starts at 5 because they want to make sure that they can still open the parks on time, or at least in a way that is going to be the most helpful. And there's not, thousands of people still running a marathon while they're trying to open the parks. They do provide transportation from Disney resorts, which is also early AF. So the buses usually take off from the resorts or start taking off from the resorts around 3:30. So you will have an early alarm clock. So you need to really make sure that you get some good sleep, that you hydrate, and that you eat well, regardless of the length of the race that you're doing, regardless of if this is your first 5K or your 100th marathon. Those early wake-ups are not easy, and neither is hitting the pavement that early either. And some things that I wanted to call that are really special and really put that magic into this race is the route. The route, you can't beat running through any of the parks. I never thought I was going to complete a half marathon or even sign up for one. And then when I got into the runDisney world and I had done my first Princess weekend and I found out that the half marathon went through Cinderella's castle, I was like, all right, well, shit, now I have to do it because that sounds incredible. And that's something you can't get anywhere else. You are running through with this pack of people. Everybody's wooing and cheering and excited. And you get to run through Cinderella's castle. You get to run through Magic Kingdom and Epcot and the boardwalk. For the marathon, you get to run through Hollywood Studios and Animal Kingdom. It's really a priceless experience that you can't beat. In addition to that, like I mentioned, there are characters on the route. So they have meet and greet stops. We're not sure how that's going to look post-COVID, kind of in these first races when we come back this November 2021. But prior to COVID, they had character stops along the route, and that was a huge part of it. So I'm sure they're going to have some kind of adjusted, probably like distance meet and greet, kind of like how they do at the parks now. But that's always super fun. It distracts you from the fact that you're running all these miles. It keeps you going, keeps you motivated, keeps a smile on your face. A lot of them love to see the costumes and get excited to kind of see themselves or a bound of themselves on the route, which is pretty cool. And the volunteers and the spectators for runDisney weekends are absolutely incredible. The water stops, they usually have them on both sides of runDisney races, which is really cool. So you don't feel like you have to dart back and forth and try to cut across to grab a water. But they're packed. The water tables are packed. You've got a lot of folks standing there handing out water, telling you, keep going, you're doing great, you got this many miles left, you're looking great, you're looking strong. That kind of motivation is always helpful. And the spectators along the route are just as excited as the volunteers and as your fellow runners. One of my absolute most favorite memories so far at a runDisney race was during the 2020 Princess weekend. I was running the half marathon. I actually caught up with my cousin Tassie, going into Magic Kingdom, which was incredible. And as we're running in, somebody was on the side, kind of like in the crowd, had a poster and it said, "Remember when you thought you couldn't do this? Keep going." Guys, when I tell you I burst into tears, I am not even exaggerating in the slightest. It was one of those moments that, like I said, I will, never forget, but just goes to show that people are there to support you in things that you're doing that are really hard. People are there to support you in things that maybe you thought you couldn't do, and will be there to get you across that finish line. So even if you want to go down for a race weekend and you're like, oh, F that, I'm not going to run, but I'll go. You can still dress up. Lots of people in the crowd dress up. You can create posters. You can just cheer people on. There's obviously lots of cowbells and things like that. And it just makes the whole environment even more magical than it already is. And honestly, as someone who's participated in these races, I cannot say thank you enough to anyone who has participated, volunteered, been a spectator for any of these races, because that's what makes it so fun. I've also had some really great support from family members and friends in 2020 when I was doing my first half. It was my first half marathon ever, as well as my first challenge. So I did the 5K, the 10K, and the half. So I did the challenge plus the 5K. I got text messages from my brother, my sister, my parents, my friends, my niece and nephews were sending videos saying, Kiki, you can do it, keep going. That's the kind of motivation that for me is what drives me to complete or try to accomplish these races. I've mentioned before, I still don't consider myself a runner. I'm not fast. I don't get that runner's high and feel like, oh, look at me go. I'm running so fast and I feel so great. I applaud everyone who does get that and is super fast and you're all so impressive to me. I purely do it for proving to myself that I can do it and feeling accomplished and feeling like I can empower myself, or sharing my story can empower someone else to try something different or try something new. And crossing the finish line at a RunDisney race is truly better than any other finish line that I've crossed. It is, you're coming down that chute and you've got spectators on the sides. You've got sometimes a character right at the finish line cheering you on as you cross through. You'll have the DJ or the commentator like calling, names out and things like that as you cross the finish line. The medals are beautiful. We can talk about that in a second. And at Princess Weekend, the very first time I was so excited and surprised when we crossed the finish line, because I tried to keep as much of it as a surprise for myself as I could to fully embrace and experience it all. And they had the fairy godmothers from, I think it was Bippity Boppity Boutique and Sir Mickey's. They had their wands and they gave you glitter over your head and gave you a little bit of pixie dust. It was incredibly magical and amazing. And just even talking about it is making me excited for next year. But medals are another thing that really motivate me. I want to be able to say, I did this. I have this proof. And of course, because Disney does everything really well, their medals are beautiful, especially with the themes. And the themes are getting more specific as we go through the years. So for example, for Princess Weekend, now over the last couple of years, they've had each race kind of represented or maybe almost hosted by a different princess. So the medals will be specific to that princess. So for 2020, the 5K was Moana, the 10K was Pocahontas, the half marathon was Cinderella, and the fairy tale challenge had the three fairies, Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather from Sleeping Beauty. And the medals are just always super cool. So even the virtual races that they did, during the pandemic, those medals were incredible. You have a lot of options of however you're motivated or empowered to complete something like this. If it's the course, check. Disney's got you covered from running through the parks to the characters en route and the entertainment en route. If you're motivated by spectators and people cheering you on and being there to kind of get you through mentally, check. Disney's got you covered there. They have incredible folks on the route, from volunteers to spectators. They give you the ability for folks that are not there to track you by your bib. So you can get those, text messages and words of encouragement from folks that are not down there with you. And if you're motivated by the bling, by the medals, every option is there for you. And lastly, you can make this race whatever you want it to be. Again, you can run, you can walk, you can run, walk. I was going to say you could skip if you want, I guess. You could probably throw some skips in there. But you can really complete the race however you want. As long as you stay within that time frame and you feel proud of yourself, let's do it. You're going to kill it and it's going to be awesome. So my journey really actually hasn't been that long with RunDisney. I really, even with running, didn't start running until October 2016. I did my first virtual Disney summer series in 2018. And I did that to prep for the 2019 Princess Weekend. That was my first in-person Disney race. And I'm telling you, when I crossed that finish line, I was like, this was amazing. This was really so much fun and so cool. I got to complete it with Katie Vining, and it really couldn't have been any better. And I knew as we crossed the finish line, we took our pictures with our medals, we got, our pixie dust, and I was like, well, that's that. I'm going to be here all the time now because that was an incredible experience. So the virtual summer series is another one actually that I didn't mention in the beginning that they do each year, where they host a different themed summer series. The goal is to complete one 5K each month of the summer. So one in June, one in July, one in August. And if you complete all three, you also get one of those challenge medals because they love to encourage you to complete more than just one. But you could also complete just June, just July, just August, whichever you feel the most confident in or the most excited about. So I've been doing those each year, and I really try to set that up as okay, summer, I'm going to try to keep myself motivated, keep myself going to prep for whatever that next race is. This year, for 2021, I'm going to be doing some of the races for the Wine and Dine virtual. I'm going to be doing some of the marathon weekend races virtual, and then Princess will be my first back in person. And I'm planning to do April, the springtime surprise. It really depends on, honestly, the theme and on the distances, because I'm for sure not ready for a marathon just yet. Maybe someday down the road, but not now. So I'm excited to see how that goes. One of the other pieces that I would say keeps me going when it comes to Run Disney, I mentioned this a little bit earlier in terms of the other runners in the races, but the community around Run Disney is so special. It's so encouraging, so motivating, empowering. I feel like I'm using those words a lot, but it's so true. And I've met some really great friends, even from Instagram, and then met them in person at the races, or a lot of the really great shops that I shop from on Instagram. A lot of them also participate in Run Disney. I've seen and met and talked to them at races as well. And everybody, as soon as, whether it's registration day, which can be super stressful for people, will probably even honestly do a whole nother episode or a half an episode on registration and how to prepare for that. But that can be a little bit stressful. And you'll always see stories or posts on Instagram sending you pixie dust, sending you magic. Let's manifest the magic to make sure that it's a smooth registration for everyone, because everyone just wants their friends to be on the route, and everybody wants to see everyone else succeed and have a really great time. So if you need that support, if you need that encouragement, there's so much out there when it comes to Run Disney that can be provided. So I hope that kind of explaining some of this Run Disney 101 type stuff is making you excited, and hopefully you'd love to come do one. And so if you're thinking about it, I do have a few things that I would say to either think about or, our favorite words, prioritize, plan, and prep about when it comes to Run Disney. You really want to think about when you want to go. So again, there are 4 separate weekends that you can choose from. Choosing a weekend could be based on the theme. It could be based on the distance. It could be based on the time of year, whether it's due to weather, or it also could even be due to the weather of where you live to train for that weekend. So for example, Princess is, my favorite weekend, but it's also hard because training for that is fall and the dead of winter right up here in Boston. So you've got to find either a treadmill or non-slippery, non-snowy, non-icy, non-freezing your ass off streets to really get your feet on the pavement, which can be challenging. So when you're choosing your weekend, consider the time and the theme and things like that. The most important is to consider the distances, which may sound kind of obvious, duh, KG, don't sign up for a marathon if you don't want to do a marathon. But the reason I say really choose and pick one specifically is because you're going to want to train for it. And you want to make sure that not only just that you feel confident that you can complete and finish the race, but that you're going to be able to commit to the training for that race. I know when I did Princess, the half marathon in 2020, I only got to mile 9 in my training. And I was scared shitless that morning of the race because I was I don't know, am I going to be able to that's almost over 4 miles that I haven't gotten yet. And I've already did the 10K yesterday and the 5K the day before that. We walked around the parks all weekend. Am I going to make it? And that's why it was so great to have caught up with Tassie during the half because, and I've said this before, but I cannot say it enough. I'm so glad that I had her there that day because there were times I was I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish. I don't know if I can do this. And she was like, okay, let's get to this next point. Come on, let's do it. We can go. And having someone to motivate you and say, we're going to do it together was amazing. So thank you times a million always to Tassi for making my first half marathon really special and making something that I was really proud of and actually was able to complete. But as soon as I finished, one of the first things that I said was, okay, next year, I am going to make sure that I really stick to my training plan and get as far up as I possibly can so that even just nerve-wise, I'll feel a little bit better. So choose a distance, not just for what you want to do or complete, but that you feel confident that you can stick to your training plan. And on that note, pick a training plan that you'll like. If you feel like you're probably going to do a run, walk, interval type race, train as, going run, walk. If you're going to wear a costume, I know it might be kind of tough or sound kind of silly, but a lot of people say like train in what you want to run in on race day, especially for those longer distances. You want to make sure that you're going to feel comfortable. You want to make sure that, you know how it's going to move or shake or move around as you're running. So you want to feel comfortable with that. The runDisney website provides tons of resources. I mentioned earlier the Jeff Galloway training plans are on there as well. And there's a few other ones out there that a lot of people use. So as we bring on different guests to share how they train and how they plan and prep for runDisney races, we'll definitely ask some people that are experts, what they think and what they find to help them be successful. But there are lots and lots of resources out there. So things to think about if you are considering it. 1, choose your weekend, whether that's based on theme, time of year, or distance. Choose a distance that you're excited about, but also that you're willing to commit to the training plan for so that you can feel the most prepared and tackle that route and your training injury-free. That is going to be the most important because that's how you're going to feel really excited and feel really great when you finish. And lastly, use as many resources as you can. That's one of the biggest things for me with this podcast is like I said, I've only been doing runDisney for a couple of years. There are people that have been doing it for a lot longer than I have that I will bring on to kind of share their expertise on and what they love to do and how they train and prepare. So there's a lot of great resources, a lot of great people to talk to because everything is a little bit different for everyone. So that is going to be incredibly important for any part of planning a Disney trip. And even actually that piece, right? Like planning your Disney trip around runDisney is a whole nother episode that we'll talk about because there's a lot more to that and things you need to consider and pack and bring with you and be prepared for when you get down there. Hopefully after this episode, you are excited about runDisney. And even if you're not excited, maybe you're a little bit intrigued and want to learn a little bit more. So we will have lots more episodes to talk about with runDisney, especially with Wine and Dine weekend coming up in November. So I know I am super excited to be following along, even though I won't be there in person. I'll be doing the 5 and 10, I think I signed up for virtual this year. And I'm like almost excited about the FOMO that I'm going to have for the first race back in person. There's just going to be so much fun and magic shared on Instagram. So I will do my best also when that comes to share a lot of that with you. And then we'll kind of see how it goes. We'll see what the marathon weekend's going to look like in the middle of the 50th anniversary celebration. We'll see what Princess weekend looks like. And then we'll see what the heck this springtime surprise event is going to be and what the theme will be and the distances. Definitely keep your ear out, keep your eye on these podcasts because lots more to come on runDisney. And I am so excited to share it with all of you. So as always, thank you for hanging out and stick around. It's going to be great.